In this video, we are going to prepare files for signature. We are fairly far along in our offer creation process. We have already learned how to log in, navigate .loop, download our MLS sheet and tax record, create our loop, navigate our loop, add our property details, including our people, and add files to our loop. Now we are going to prepare those files. There are two main types of files. One is a template or form. The name is used interchangeably, template or form. We are going to set up several templates or forms as examples, and you will see several templates and forms in any offer that you make. We are also going to set up flattened PDFs, documents that are not forms. They might look like forms, but they don't have a place for anyone to initial or sign. We're going to need to add that functionality manually. There are two ways to do that: by applying a template or dragging and dropping the initials or the signature items and assigning them. We will see both ways. This is going to be a feature-filled training. Please be prepared to pause, try it on your own, repeat, rewind, so that you become familiar with the process. As always, you can create a training loop, and you can call me with your struggles, your questions, and your requests for review and support anywhere along the way. Let's start preparing our files for signature. I like to start at the bottom because these are easier. When I say easier, I mean they are very simple forms that have only a few places for someone to initial or sign, so they move quickly. First, we are going to set up the energy efficiency brochure, the wire fraud notice, and the Dalton Wade disclosure. These are all templates that are part of your residential buy-side loop that you created. They're here by default. Let's start by opening the energy efficiency brochure, move the hand to it, and click to open. The autofill box is going to pop up. This is a clue that it's a form. It is only going to pop up the first time you open your form. It is going to prompt you for some information that is relevant to your form. Buyer 1, it knows, is Betty K. Buyer because she was set up in the system as one of our people. We don't have a buyer 2, so I'm going to choose the drop down and select no one. I'm going to click autofill, and it's going to fill in Betty K. Buyer into the initials for me. This is the only place that Betty needs to sign. There is a spot for a second buyer, but we didn't have one. That's okay. Don't worry about that. Betty K. Buyer is set up here. We know because her initials are here, and it's waiting for her. This is what it looks like when it's waiting for someone. We're going to click Save, and then we are going to back out. Now your screen, when you do this, might prompt you with a pop-up that asks you if you want to share the document. Say no. In fact, check the box in the bottom left-hand side of that pop-up that says don't show this again. Then you won't see it again. And you can control when you share your files without being prompted. moving right along. We have set up our energy efficiency brochure. We are going to repeat the same process with our wire fraud. Bring your hand over the title of the form or template. Click to open. Your autofill will pop up because this is the first time we've opened this form. It knows our buyer is Betty K. Buyer. It's wanting to know if there's a second buyer. We're going to tell it, no, there isn't. And it knows the name of our first buyer. Again, this is because we have already provided this information to the system from our people section. We're going to click autofill, give it a quick check, save, and back out. We're going to repeat the same process with our Dalton Wade disclosure. Put the hand over the top, click to open. The autofill box will pop up. Betty K. Buyer, our buyer 1 is there. We still don't have a buyer 2, so we are going to select no one from the select person dropdown and click autofill. Betty K. Buyer is here. We're going to kind of check. There's initials on every page and a signature at the bottom. We'll hit save and back out. The next one is our pre-approval. Nobody needs to sign that. Our MLS printout, that's for us. No one needs to sign that. The housing for older persons. Now this one was shared to us from the seller. It was in the MLS. It was in the MLS attachments. Why is this important? It is not a form. It is a document. It's a PDF. We're going to have to add the form fields. The seller's disclosure, same thing. This was provided to us from the seller. It was an attachment in the MLS. Therefore, it is not a form anymore. It is a document. It is a flattened PDF. There are many names for it. Either way, we need to set this up for signature. The homeowner's disclosure. This is the same scenario. This disclosure was provided to us from the seller. It is a PDF. It's a flattened document. We need to add form fields. The as-is residential contract. Now this one was part of our loop. It is a form. It is a template. We are going to put our hand over it. We are going to click it to open, and the autofill box should pop up. Now this autofill box, it has much more information on it. And I want you to notice as I scroll that some of that information is filled in and some of it isn't. This autofill box is going to include information that we have already provided the system. It knows all of our people. We put them in our people. We are going to select no one from the drop-down for buyer 2. The property address is here. The parcel ID is here. This is why we add this information to the property details. The financials are here. The buying agent name is here. The company name is here. The closing date is here. Our listing agent, it's all here because we already added it as part of our people and the property details. Now, we did not add an address for our buyer. It is not required. Compliance is not going to kick this back to you. However, if you want to fill this in, I'm going to do so now. It will pull the information and fill in the box labeled buyer's address for purposes of notice on page 12 of the contract. There we go. I'm going to scroll down. I'm not going to put the seller information in there. The listing information included. Property includes and excludes. Our escrow information is here. This is a FREC requirement. And our home warranty company is here. We filled in everything that we can. We're going to select autofill, and it is going to plug it into the contract. Now, with a form this complicated, this is a contract. It's complicated. 12-page contract. We are going to need to fill in additional information. So please scroll through. We have our purchase price, our initial deposit, and make sure you include how much the seller is financing. And you should fill in the balance. So the balance to close in this case, and I just did this in my head, so I wouldn't trust it, is $21,000. Our time for acceptance. I tend to give 24 hours, approximately. And I tend to give a cutoff of about 5 p.m., 6 p.m., something like that, because I just don't want to be waiting all night. Our closing date. You're going to check this box if the property is subject to lease or occupancy after closing. In other words, it has a tenant. Assignability needs to be filled out. Section 7, by default, may not assign this contract. You're going to enter if the buyer is paying cash or if they are getting financing. If they are needing a financing contingency, then you are going to say what kind. By default, they have 30 days for their loan approval. And they must keep the seller and broker, you, fully informed. When they get loan approval, they must share that. If they don't, they could be kicked out of the contract by the seller if they fail to do that. Or they can waive their loan approval. Either way, not desirable, and you should always make sure that you share loan approval. This is not conditional loan approval. It says loan approval with the selling agent. This is not a contract training. I'm just going over this briefly. Please take the time to read the contract and ask the questions. Here's a nice list of closing costs and fees, what the buyer tends to pay and what the seller tends to pay. Worth reading. Title evidence. You are going to check a box as to whether the seller or the buyer or the Miami-Dade provision is going to apply in determining the closing agent. You are going to fill in the home warranty information. Not applicable is the default, so we are going to need to change that because we are asking for a home warranty, not to exceed $600. By default, we ask the seller to pay assessments in full in the next section. Again, this is not a contract training. I am just going through with some quick tidbits. Disclosures. Please read through these so that you can be informed as to how the process is going to work. The energy efficiency brochure, for example, is covered here. This explains that providing that the buyer receiving that is a requirement of Florida statute. This is why we provide that to them. I'm asked that question many times. Why is the energy efficiency brochure part of our loop? Why is it required? Read line 217 and 18 and you will understand. So do take the time to read through these disclosures: lead paint, HOA, tax, FERPTA, seller's disclosure. Please read through these. Your property inspection and the right to cancel is another important one. 15 days is the default. You can certainly change this. Probably not to 150. Your walkthrough, your seller assistance for closing out permits, assignment of repairs and warranties, the escrow agent and broker. Broker liability in terms of professional advice. We are not attorneys. We just tell people the facts. They can make their own choices. They can seek the recommendations or advice of an attorney if they so choose. Dispute and resolution. Please read how this works. Attorney fees and costs relative to mediation and disputes. Title evidence restrictions and examination. This is covered in the contract. The survey is covered in the contract. Egress and ingress, lease information, liens, time. Time is of the essence. How the calendar works for counting. The effective date can be any day of the week. You always count through weekends and holidays, but you cannot end your counting on a weekend or a holiday. For example, if your contract is executed on a Thursday and your escrow is due on day 3, Thursday is day 0, Friday is day 1, Saturday is day 2, Sunday is day 3. Your escrow will be due on the following business day, Monday, at 5 p.m., unless Monday is a holiday, in which case it will be Tuesday at 5 p.m. The same method of counting goes for your loan approval, your inspection, loan application, all dates and deadlines. This will tell you what happens in a hurricane or a war or a fire. Conveyance. Please read these. I understand that they are, it will be difficult reading. But read through here. 1031 exchanges, FERPTA tax withholding. Now, page 11. If you have any addenda that are going to be included, you should mark them here. They should match up. For example, we have the HOA for this one. We also have a housing for older persons. We're also going to include our seller's disclosure. Any additional terms will go here. For example, closing cost assistance. This is how I word mine. I make it due at closing. I always include closing costs, prepaids, which would be insurance, things like that, and allowables. Meaning if my closing costs were only $2,500, then allowables could include buying down the points. And that is why I word that way. Now, that's the end. Everyone signs here. Do you see how it put in our buyer's address for purposes of notice? Our agents are included here. And it knows our sellers need to sign and our buyers need to sign because they were added to our people. We are going to click Save. That is the end of the portion of this training on preparing templates for signature. Next, we are going to prepare some PDFs for signature. We are going to do the housing for older persons and the HOA disclosure. We are going to do those two manually. The seller's property disclosure, we are going to apply a template to assist us. So two ways to do the same thing. Let's get started with the housing for older persons disclosure. We are going to open it. I want you to notice that no autofill box pops up. I see an autofill button here, but I can't press it. Normally, if I press this button, it would prompt that autofill box to pop up, even if I'd already seen it. This is handy. So I'm going to need to set this one up manually. I'm going to do this with the add button. When I click add, options are presented to me. Those options include adding a signature, adding initials, adding text, adding a date, adding a name, adding a checkbox, adding a radio button, and adding a strike through. In this case, we are going to add a name of our buyer. So I'm just going to start typing her name in, and it's going to try and find her, which it did. Why didn't it? Or I can just keep typing. There we go. It found her, and I'm going to make it a little bit larger. So her name is in there. I actually think we need to put the K, so we can manually put things in. There we go, Betty K. Buyer. Now, we need to add a place for her to initial. So we're going to go back to Add, and we're going to select Initials. I'm going to click it, and then click again to drop it. This is a little different than a drag and drop. I would encourage you to practice adding initials and signatures. Once you have clicked it, the Assign Field or Sign Now box will pop up. If this is for you to sign, you can sign it now. That is a nice feature of this program. This is for Betty, our buyer. So we're going to click Assign Field, and then this box will pop up, and we can choose who we want to sign it. That is it. This is done. We are going to hit Save, and we are going to back out. That is a simple form, a simple file to turn. We've turned it into a form, essentially. We have created a form manually. We're going to do the same thing with our homeowners association disclosure. We are going to open it. The autofill box is not going to pop up. We need to add our buyer. We need to add initials. We need to add a signature. And I think that's it. Yes. So we are going to start with the name. This time I'm just going to do a text box. Add text. I can make my text box larger by dragging when I see those two arrows. I'm just going to type in Betty K. Buyer and click enter, and we're done. I think I'm going to change the shape of this a little bit. I think that's it's covering things up. I don't like that. So I just reshaped it with the two arrows. Buyer's initials go here. So I'm going to go back up to my add button. I'm going to choose add initials. Left click. I'm dragging it here. My finger is not down on the mouse. This takes some practice. I clicked to drop it. Assign field, click, and choose the person that you want to initial, Betty K. Buyer. Then I'm going to scroll down to the next place. It says buyer. This is for her signature. I'm going to go back up to add, I'm going to left click on my mouse signature. I'm going to drag it down here and I'm going to assign it again to my buyer. I'm going to save it. It's done. You notice I did not put a date stamp. Why not? When Betty signs this, it's going to apply a date stamp. That's why not. I'm going to back out. Now, so far we have set up several forms and templates for signature. We have turned several PDFs that we downloaded from the MLS into a form, set them up for signature. Now we are going to do the seller's property disclosure. Again, I want you to notice the autofill does not pop up because it's not a form. Now, this one has buyer initials at the bottom of every page. And I'm taking a glance and I'm noticing that the buyer is going to sign on the right-hand side. This is important. I'll show you why. We are going to set this up using a template. It's a special template that we have created that is going to make your life easier. Go to File, choose Apply Template. Again, we're going to apply a template. Go to File, choose Apply Template. Your standard template window will appear. You are going to go to a special folder. Scroll down. It is called Buyer Side Contract Templates. These are for the buyer. There are only 3 files in here right now. This will grow. This selection will grow. We have a lead paint disclosure, the seller's property disclosure, it says right side, and the seller's property disclosure, it says left side. Our buyer signed on the right side. That's why we noticed. This is the correct template. Choose this, choose Apply, and it's gotten it pretty close to those boxes. They're probably a little bit off because this person probably scanned this in after having it ink signed. So it's not exact. That's okay. This is close enough. You can leave it alone, or you can do a quick drag and get everything just so, if that makes you happier. Either way, it takes far less time than adding initials to all of these spaces. Far less time. So this is a huge, 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 huge time saver. We're finished. We're happy with how everything is organized now. So we're going to hit save because we're happy. We're going to go back out. Or we don't even have to go back out. Well, let's go back out. I'm going to open it back up again. And this time I'm going to notice that I can choose the autofill. I'm going to do that. It is going to prompt me for buyer 1. Buyer 2 is no one, because now it knows it's a template. Now it knows it needs to do this. It is learned. I can hit autofill and see how BKB is right in here. It knows where she's going to sign. And it put her name in here. It's a beautiful thing. Click Save. Just a little tidbit. We also have the seller side template for the contract. We'll cover that on a listing. That's it for this training. This was preparing files for signature. In the next video, we will learn to share those files with the folks that need to sign them. And we will also learn to share them with the folks that don't need to sign them. For example, the listing agent needs to just receive them. Thank you for joining me.